Hello, art buddies, and welcome back. Today we are going to draw Taskmaster versus Deathstroke. We're going to go from pencils to inks to colors. So stick around and let's get to drawing. Okay, normally I'd start out with first appearances, but I just want to preface this by saying this was a request by one of my followers, Michael Stivitz, I believe it is. Well, we'll just call him Mike. And he suggested Taskmaster, but in truth, I don't know very much about Taskmaster, and I honestly don't know very much about Deathstroke. I mean, I know their abilities, I know where they come from, but I don't know a lot story-wise. So this is going to be a fun one. So let's get to it. Taskmaster's first appearance was in Avengers 195. He was briefly in that, but his full appearance is in 196. I don't know if that's like the same thing I go through with all the other first appearances I talk about, but because I haven't read the 195, but I have read the 196, and that's from 1980. Deathstroke first appeared in Teen Titans number 2. That's also from 1980, but it's like a few months later. So Taskmaster was the first on the scene. I was gonna go with just a Taskmaster, like a realistic looking Taskmaster, and kind of like the standard poster pose or cover pose, and then I thought about, you know what? I haven't done one of the chibis in a while, and I really enjoyed doing the Wolverine and the Deadpool one. So I figured I would just throw Deathstroke in and make this a fight and do it chibi style. You'll also notice when this one started that I actually had a little sketch down of their movements. And that's because when I wasn't sure what I was going to do, I was just sketching little things for a few minutes. And I said, hey, I like that one. But I wasn't recording, so I didn't want to start over because I liked the movements. So I just kept it, and this one starts about 3 minutes into the drawing. So for those of you who like watching me get the idea down and capturing the motion, I kind of started in the middle of that, so I apologize. What I do know about Taskmaster is that he was a trainer of criminals. He would teach criminals how to fight, and he had academies, and criminals would go learn how to fight at his academies. And eventually, a bunch of his academies got shut down by Avengers and other heroes, so he started doing mercenary work. His superpower, although some writers don't really think it's a superpower, but I think being able to copy and memorize any fighting move or movement your opponent makes or anybody you see makes constitutes a superpower, since you can execute it flawlessly and remember it. But it does have its limitations, because while he can copy any move you make, he can't copy your superpowers. Like if he's copying Daredevil, he could copy the moves, but he can't copy his radar sense or any other sense that he's using to help commit these moves, such as his sense of hearing or his sense of smell or taste or whatever he's using in the moment to gather the information he needs to make the move. And with Captain America, he can make the moves, but he doesn't have the enhanced reflexes or the peak human abilities that Captain America has. So he can execute the move, but it won't have the powers or any enhancements behind it that Captain America brings to the game. I also like that he carries kind of like a Captain America style shield and a sword, and he's not afraid to cut. And the skull mask is pretty cool because, I kind of give it more of a robotic skull look as more of one of his modern appearances, but I kind of dig the regular skull he uses in his earlier appearances because it's kind of silly, but it makes it cool at the same time, because if it's drawn right, it's very menacing. But like if you look at the cover of his first appearance, not so much. But in later ones, when more modern artists draw it and they get into the details of the skull, it is very menacing. But for the chibi style, I decided to keep it almost like a simplified skull. Almost looks like a Skeletor, except obviously he's not yellow and his cape's not blue. But here you go. You see me filling in the skull now from the more realistic one I started with to the more simplified robotic one. And as for Slade, his mask is super easy because he just a circle with half of it black, so you only got to draw one eye. Although I did have two, if you notice, when I started, just because I wasn't sure which side was black, so I had to look it up. And the other side is just orange with an eye. I didn't go with the armored mask version that they do. I went with more of his original look with the Captain America boots and the big flared out gloves. Same thing with Taskmaster. I went with the Captain America boots because I kind of like those more. They're more fun to draw than just a standard superhero boot. Also, in this video, I'm trying different things, and in this one, you know, I had the intro like I had in the Venom video where I show you the pencils, the inks, and then the colors at the beginning, so you kind of see where our end goal is. So if you're following along, you know that it's not just a big sketchy mess and a guy drawing circles. So in this one, I decided to take that to another level, and I'm going to do this for all the ones going forward, and I'm going to put the finished drawing up in the corner, so that way, you know, we have a defined goal to where we're working towards to finish the drawing. So if you're one of the people following along, which is honestly better to do in longer videos, you'll have the final picture to see. So you'll be like, why am I drawing this stupid circle, or why am I drawing this stupid half moon? What's it going to be? Well, you look up in the corner and you see. So hopefully it helps with motivation, because it definitely is helping mine getting through this when I'm doing the voiceover, because I see where we're going and where we're heading. And looking at reference sometimes when I'm drawing things, that helps me with the final thing too, because then I could actually see it in my head, like Taskmaster. I was like, what's his sword look like? What's his shield look like? I know he wears white, blue, and orange, but how's it set up? I didn't realize there was so much orange in his cape. I mean, so much white in his cape. And the way that I draw him, I don't show the inside of the cape, so you don't see the orange. So it's all white, but I really like in the end where I decided to do with the cape. It's not what you see now at all. And I also just did some standard bricks and smoke in the background just to give it an environment, because I'm just floating in a sea of purple. Would have looked a little silly. Okay, so now we're going to talk about Deathstroke. And before I get into Deathstroke, I would just like to say I had to pause this video for a moment and redo the actual video file, because at this part right here, apparently I got a text and it made a loud ding, and I thought I deleted it when I was doing the movie, but I didn't. And then after I paused it and I got it all fixed and I re-exported all the video, it sounded like there was a freaking dog-fighting ring outside my window, except it was puppies, really high-pitched puppies just barking in unison, tons of them. I don't even know what house that would be. And that took about 15 minutes. And then after that, the rooster started freaking doing its rooster thing. And it's 5:45 in the afternoon on a Wednesday. So, I mean, people are conspiring against this video getting done. But I will persevere, and this will go up Friday if it kills me. So if you hear chirping puppies in the background or roosters, then I am sorry, but, you know, the show must go on. And here we go. We finished the pencils already. Again, they're my rougher pencils, and there's what the inks are going to look like. That's another thing we're doing. We're going to show the next stage finished before we move on to it. But now it's time to ink Deathstroke and the Taskmaster. And back to Taskmaster, where we started about 2 minutes ago before I was rudely interrupted by a puppy fighting ring and roosters. Taskmaster joined the army when he was like 15 or 16 years old, and he excelled at everything. He was the best fighter they had, the best, you know, runner, combatant, everything. Everything they showed him, he mastered it, and he took it to another level. So then he was shipped off to Vietnam, and the things that happened in Vietnam I honestly don't remember because I read this a long time ago. But after that, they put him in a special super soldier program, kind of like Captain America, where they inject him full of drugs to enhance his memory and his durability, and it gave him a little healing factor. And it gave him the ability to use 90% of his brain when normal humans use 10. I believe that has been debunked since then, and in fact I know it has been debunked since then, but in 1980 people believe that was fact. So that he built that into Deathstroke's origin. It could have been retconned by now, I don't know, but his original origin had that. And so then he became the Deathstroke, we all know, because I guess he went into some fight thing for the military, and he disobeyed orders to save a friend who saved him back in Vietnam because he was sent into a suicide mission by some captain or colonel who had a vengeance against them, and he quit and he became a mercenary. Then something happened with one of his children, because he was married, had a few kids, and the child got its throat cut when he went to rescue his son, and so the son didn't die, but he went mute because he couldn't speak. His vocal cord was severed. And his wife, who was also a military combatant and trained, blamed him for that, and she tried to shoot him, but it only took out his eye. So that's why he always wears an eye patch, and he's missing his eye, because he got shot in the face by his wife for almost getting his son killed. So even though he was only trying to save him, but you know how that is sometimes. You just can't win, and you face the consequences of your actions. I go through that a bunch of family stuff, but you know, it is what it is. And then Deathstroke had his first meeting with the Teen Titans, where he picked up a contract that he was finishing for another one of his children, I believe. And that started his long-standing feud with the Titans. The only real Deathstroke story that I have a memory of that sticks in my head is the crossover between the X-Men and the Teen Titans from the 80s. I think it was 82 or 83. I don't remember the whole story of what happened in that. I read it way back when. I think I still have a copy somewhere. I should reread that. It was a good one. But I do remember one scene where Deathstroke's stalking out his prey, and I believe he's looking to snipe somebody or something. And Wolverine taps him on the shoulder and takes a swing at him, and it looks like he pretty much slices Deathstroke, but his reflexes and his superhuman abilities kick in, and he just gets grazed, and Wolverine's shocked that he was fast enough to get away. And then Slade's word bubble, he's in shock that Wolverine was able to sneak up on him, because that doesn't happen since he had his enhancements done. People can't get the drop on him, but Wolverine was able to do that, and that shocked him. So that's one thing that I remember from reading the old DC Marvel crossovers back in the day. Those were fun when they just randomly did that. And it was just kind of weird how they decided to team up the X-Men with the Teen Titans, and Phoenix was part of it. And like I said, I literally remember almost nothing of the story except for that part. But it's just weird that they picked the X-Men and the Titans and not like the X-Men and the Justice League, because back then the X-Men were the hottest thing going, and I guess Teen Titans were pretty popular too, probably more popular than the Justice League at the time. So I don't know, what do I know? It's 1983. I was a wee young lad back then. And speaking of popularity of characters, I read something, it wasn't recently, it was a couple of years ago, and I thought it was kind of fascinating that in the early 80s, I want to say 84-ish, 83, 84, comics were waning in popularity, and DC was feeling the effects more than Marvel. And DC, whoever owned DC at the time, offered to sell all their IP, you know, Batman, Superman, everything. They offered to sell it all to Marvel, and they only wanted like $2 or $4 million for everything. And Marvel literally said, no, we don't need these characters. We don't want them. We don't know what to do with them. You could keep them. And it's probably a darn good thing that happened, because I couldn't imagine the DC heroes living on a regular Earth. I mean, it suits the Marvel characters fine. It's what they are. They're more grounded. But DC characters are more gods among men than actual heroes. You know, you got your Supermans, your Green Lanterns, your Flashes, and they all could do things that are on a much higher level than almost all of their Marvel counterparts. So it just would have been weird having like a Superman in the Marvel universe. It would just throw off the dynamic, and I don't think it would have worked out in the end. But it all worked out anyway, and we got what we got. Marvel ended up selling a bunch of their stuff in the 90s because they went bankrupt. They started their own distribution, and they bought Skybox, and they started doing cards, and they just way overextended to the point where they just weren't selling anymore, and they had to start selling off rights to characters and stuff for movies. That's why Spider-Man's owned by Sony. The movie rights are owned by Sony, because their most popular characters, they had to sell off so that they could get money to basically not go under. So they sold the Hulk to Universal, Spider-Man to Sony, the Fantastic Four and Daredevil to Fox. And all they really had left was Iron Man and Captain America and some of the villains in Avengers and Doctor Strange and people like that. And they're all cool characters, but people don't know, or a lot of people don't realize, that before the Iron Man movie in 2008, nobody read Iron Man. Iron Man was a C-class character tops. He was always on the verge of cancellation. I mean, it's not just Iron Man. Even like I've said in many videos, Daredevil's my favorite overall superhero from the big two. He was always on the verge of cancellation too. I mean, when Frank Miller took over, the only reason they gave it to him because he was like a fresh newcomer, and they figured, worst that could happen is it gets canceled. We're gonna cancel it anyway, so give the kid a shot. So yeah, Captain America. Nobody really read Captain America. The Avengers. It was all about the X-Men. If it wasn't an X book, it was nothing. That's like when in the 90s, in an attempt to revitalize the Avengers and the Fantastic Four and Iron Man, and to a lesser extent the Hulk, they started a new imprint called Heroes Reborn, and they had all the guys, some of the guys who would eventually, they were at Image. They came back to do this. They gave Jim Lee the Fantastic Four, I believe. They gave Rob Liefeld Captain America and the Avengers. Whilst Portatio did Iron Man. There's excellent art in those books. Well, at least the Iron Man books and the Fantastic Four books. The art is spectacular. The stories are a mess, but the art is amazing. And that was an attempt to revitalize those characters because nobody was reading it. And then the Iron Man movie hit, and it was a hit, and it's a great movie. They changed Tony Stark in the comics more to fit the character in the movies, because Tony Stark in the comics was he was an ass. He was a drunk. He was abrasive. He was not very likable. Robert Downey Jr. brought all those qualities to Iron Man, and they were mostly adapted in the comic books. In fact, I saw a meme, whatever the hell you call it, and it was a roadmap for Marvel movies, and it was meant to be a joke. Like, okay, Iron Man, cool, was a hit. What are we going to do next? Captain America? I guess we don't have anybody else. Then after that, we'll do Thor. Oh, jeez. Really? We got to do a Thor movie? And then it moved on to Ant-Man and Doctor Strange. It was pretty much the roadmap that Marvel followed. But at least in the first phase of Marvel, they made things work. They made characters that weren't as popular as Spider-Man or the X-Men or Wolverine. And they made good movies with good scripts. And that's what made those characters endearing. And that's what put Marvel back on top. Because, before then, they had nothing that could compete with Batman or Superman or whatever. If you look at charts for most popular characters in certain years, it was almost always either Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, Flash. I think Green Lantern topped it once, but once 2008 hits, then you get Iron Man, you get Captain America, you get Doctor Strange, and all those other ones, and that's due to the success of the movies. Before then, like when I was a kid, nobody bought Iron Man. I mean, I almost bought Iron Man's first appearance because I thought it was a good deal. I could have got a near mint copy when I was like 12 or 13 years old for $200, but my father talked me out of it and kind of convinced me to buy a bike instead because I needed a bicycle. Because when I was a kid, bikes were life, and we drove everywhere on those things. And figured that was more important than a comic. But it would be nice to have a near mint copy of Tales of Suspense 39, the first Iron Man. That would definitely be something I wouldn't mind having in a vault somewhere. But anyway, back to Taskmaster and Deathstroke. Taskmaster, like I said, I don't really know much about him except for he was an Avengers villain and his powers. He was in she was in the Black Widow movie. They turned her into a woman and she was brainwashed, and she's more like a zombie fighting machine than the actual Taskmaster. And the costume was terrible, and I almost think that it was meant to be a male character until it leaked that he was a woman or some, and they kind of switched up who it was at the last minute. I could be wrong about that because who knows what these dirt sheets are talking about. But in the Thunderbolts movie in the beginning, where they unceremoniously killed Taskmaster in the first 5 minutes, they streamlined the costume. It looked really nice and it was badass, and I was actually looking forward to her involvement in the rest of the movie. And then Ghost shoots her in the head. I don't know about you guys, but I would rather see Taskmaster on the screen than Ghost. Not that I have anything against Ghost, but Ghost is another like sea-level Iron Man hero from the late 80s, mid 80s. You know, at least Taskmaster fought the Avengers and was an actual threat. But I don't make these movies. I don't get to make these decisions. So you kind of get what you get. And you can see here that we're nearing the end of the inks for Taskmaster and Deathstroke. And there it is. There's our finished inks minus the smoke. And that's our colors. And now we're going to color Taskmaster versus Deathstroke. A couple seconds ago I was talking about how characters weren't as popular as they are now. And I'm not throwing shade at those characters. It's just how it was before the movies came. And I mentioned that I personally think Batman could be Captain America in any given fight. He's just more skilled overall. I think I actually got in a little Reddit argument with somebody over that who was willing to die on the Captain America hill, even though Batman's faced people who are stronger, tougher, and far more skilled and came out on top. And one of those characters is Deathstroke. Deathstroke has fought Batman on more than one occasion, and Deathstroke has beaten Batman. Deathstroke has fought Batman to a standstill. Batman has beaten Deathstroke, but it's not one of those things where Batman constantly wins. There was one I remember, I believe it was Deathstroke's 80s series, and he fights Batman, and Deathstroke wins that fight. They're on a ledge and they're fighting, and Deathstroke's able to, I believe, incapacitate Batman long enough to get away. But at the end of that fight, Deathstroke is spent. He has nothing left, and he's basically crawling away, holding his chest, and he was thinking to himself that if he didn't have any of his modifications or enhanced senses, there is no way he would be able to last, 5 minutes with Batman. There's no way he would win that fight, because Batman is just that skilled. And Slade is good enough that he, even before his enhancements, he mastered every fighting style that was thrown at him. The difference is Batman mastered all of them. So while Deathstroke can beat Batman and gets the upper hand at times, he definitely attributes it to his enhancements and not just his overall skill. His overall skill would not be enough to take out the Bat. But with his enhanced speed, reflexes, strength, brain power, all that, he can fight Batman to a standstill and sometimes actually win. I did a little reading on Taskmaster before I started this because, as I said earlier, I'm not as familiar with him as I am other characters and villains because I didn't read the Avengers growing up. I mean, I bought a few issues for few different crossovers or events, like the X-Men vs. Avengers. That was a fun one, crossover they did in X-Men Fantastic Four too. So Taskmaster wasn't really on my radar other than the cool skull mask and the cloak, because I think that's a great look. But I was thinking, Deathstroke can beat Batman. Deathstroke has fought Batman to a standstill. Would Taskmaster be able to? And much I'd like to say sorry to Mike, I don't think so. Taskmaster can memorize his moves. He's smart enough to be original with them and use a lot of the stuff against the Batman. But Batman is so well trained that I think once he figures out that Taskmaster can mimic almost anything he could throw at him, and he is proficient enough in everything that he knows, because he's mastered everything. He's not just proficient in judo, he's mastered judo. He's not proficient in Krav Maga, he's mastered it. And I've also seen other things where he's had to switch it up, and he would basically realize that he's being mimicked, and he would switch up often enough so that his style would change and it would throw off Taskmaster's game, because one of his weaknesses is he's not really great with characters who are less predictable. Like, his tactics are less effective on, say, Deadpool, because Deadpool's insane and he doesn't have an actual strategy. He's Deadpool. He just does Deadpool stuff and hopes for the best. So I think Batman will be able to throw Taskmaster off his game enough to get the win more times than not. I think, the off fight, Taskmaster might get the advantage and win one every now and then, but for the most part, I think his track record would be pretty low against the Batman. Although there was a Batman fight where he fought a character similar to Taskmaster called Prometheus. Except Prometheus, instead of having the ability to memorize skills, he basically had mini discs, because we're dating ourselves to the 90s. And he would put the mini discs in his helmet, and the mini discs would be programmed with, like, say, Batman's fighting styles, or Green Arrows, or whatever it is. And he was actually able to take down Batman. And the way Batman beat him is ridiculously funny. After he met up with him again, it was one of those Avengers storyline, not Avengers, Justice League, sorry. I got Avengers on my mind because of Taskmaster. He slipped a disc. He switched discs out for, like, his abilities with Stephen Hawking's. So when Prometheus put the disc in his headset to copy Batman's moves, he put in Stephen Hawking's. And while Stephen Hawking's is a genius and figured out a lot of what we know about certain sciences, and he's not very physical. He was in a wheelchair since, I want to say, his 20s or 30s, and he wasn't very mobile. And I thought that was a very dated thing to do. Back then it was funny. Now I think about it and it's kind of messed up, and I don't think they would allow that in the comic today, but in 1999 or whenever it was fair game, and they used it, and it was pretty darn funny. So hopefully I didn't offend anybody with that, but I didn't write the story. I think, who was it? Was it Grant Morrison? I think Grant Morrison did. He does those kind of things from time to time. Like, he brought back all the classic Batman things, like the Batman of Zen-Ha-Ri and stuff like that, and Damian Wayne. So, but this isn't a Batman video. This is a Taskmaster Deathstroke video. Like, Deathstroke, he's carried over into a lot more media. He was in the Teen Titans cartoons and Teen Titans Go. I think he was in some of the Justice League animated. He was in Batman Superman Dawn of Justice. He was not a big part. I think he was just a cameo at the end on the boat with Luthor. I don't know if he showed up in it. But if Ben Affleck actually got his Batman movie, I believe Deathstroke was going to be the main villain. But I guess the behind the scenes and the stress of it all took its toll on Ben Affleck, and he bowed out. He agreed to come back for the Flash movie as a send-off. But so we'll see what happens with Batman in the James Gunn universe, because Superman comes out next week. Which, my Superman drawing, I finished it yesterday. It's him versus, I switched it up a little. I was originally going to do Homelander, but I went with Thor. And this one has a definitive winner, and I'm sure you could guess who it is. My Superman, I was looking at it once I was finished with it, because when I was going with it, I'm like, this is cool. And it still is cool. And I was kind of going for more of the new movie build on Batman. I'm not Batman, Superman. Not his look. I used the traditional Superman costume. I didn't use, like, the Kingdom Come S or any of that stuff. But I was looking, and I'm like, my Superman, he's not huge. He's not bulky. He's more of a streamlined Superman, He doesn't have the bulging chest and the thing, and he looks a little bit like David Cornersweet, so I'm happy with the way he came out. And I usually draw most of my heroes in more realistic body types. I don't like getting the huge, over bulked out bodybuilder look, because if you get too big and you take off too much body fat, that hinders your movements. It doesn't help. It slows you down. It hurts your stamina. It hurts your mobility. So, like, I always picture somebody like Batman more in the line of a gymnast or something like that, where he is leaner but strong. So more of, like, not as thin as a Brandon Lee, but a slightly more bulked up version. More how they show Nightwing in the books, or Jason Todd. They're never as big as they depict Bruce. I always figure Bruce is around their size, and even with somebody like Deathstroke, but he's more enhanced and he's superhuman, so he can be more bulky, even though we kind of drew him chibi style here and we didn't go with the photo accurate one. One of these days, Mike, I know you requested Taskmaster, and I'm delivering, but I think one of these days I'm going to do a shorter video where I'm just going to do a straight up Taskmaster. It's not going to be right away. It'll be a bit down the line, but one of these days I will do a poster pose Taskmaster, because I want to do the skull mask, and I want to do the cape, and I want it to be almost Spawn-like. So I think that'll be fun, but that popped into my head when I was almost done with this one. So, and eventually I'm going to run out of characters that I want to draw, and I'm going to have to go back to the well. Like, I'm definitely going to have to do another Batman or 3, because I just have a lot more information I can share on Batman. Same thing with Superman. I'm probably going to have to do another Daredevil, but they're all coming. I thought another fun thing about Taskmaster is he started out, he trained criminals to fight, and he had academies, and after they shut those down a few times, losing to the Avengers and whatnot, he actually joined the side of good for a while, and he started training heroes. He would train Hawkeye, and he would train various other heroes in the art of defense, and I thought that was a pretty cool little segue. He had almost a redemption arc, but he was also part of Hydra's version of the Avengers, so he never fully reformed, but he almost got there. And as for Deathstroke sometimes walks the gray area as the anti-hero. He's not always the villain. He's not always the hero. Sometimes he's at odds with Batman. Sometimes he's not. There's a really funny one where he's on a boat and he's sent to assassinate, I want to say, Bruce Wayne. And he runs into Clark Kent in Bruce Wayne's clothes. So he tries to stop him, and somehow Clark got drunk, and Clark's like, ah, blah, and he goes to stab him, and his knife breaks, and he's like, what is going on here? I don't get it. And Superman flicks him, and he literally flies off the boat and crashes into the ocean, and he's like, I don't understand what just happened there. So I thought that was a pretty good one. I think, was it Joe Kelly? I don't know who wrote that, but it was a fun little annual, and it just poked fun at the whole thing. Like, what if you tried to assassinate Clark Kent? I saw a thing about a movie where somebody did something like that, where like it'd be funny to watch a movie where the CIA is trying to kill Clark Kent because he's a good reporter onto a story, but they keep failing because he's Superman, and they can't figure out why they keep failing at killing this guy. And it would be more like of a comedy where they stumble over each other and whatnot. But we're coming at the end of this one. It went much quicker than I thought. I hope my ramblings didn't drift off too far from where we started, but there you go. So thanks for coming along. Like and subscribe. Thanks for joining the draw, and we'll see y'all in the next one.